The seat I shouldn't have taken. The great hall was a sky of glass and chained moons, 1,000 candle flames breathing like stars caught indoors. Music moved like a river taught to wear a crown, slow, ceremonial, too clean to touch. I kept to the back where shadows pooled and laughter didn't have to raise its voice to reach me. Omegas belonged to angles and edges, to places where the light went thin. I told myself I'd slip in, witness the vows, and slip out again like a rumor that remembered its place. I told myself I wouldn't make the kind of mistake that made people remember my face. Then someone's shoulder clipped mine. Sharp, deliberate. "Move," she hissed, beta-sweet and venom-tipped. "You're blocking the aisle." I stepped too quickly, snagged my dress on the carved arm of a bench, and fell into an empty seat. One heartbeat later, the room inhaled. Boots stopped beside me. Leather whispered. Pine and rain and that low electric scent of power rolled over my skin. "That seat is reserved," a voice said, deep, controlled. The kind of voice stone was carved to honor. I looked up. He was taller than the stories, broader than the songs. Shadow stitched him together. Black ceremonial coat bracketed in silver thread, the crescent sigil burning at his collarbone like a quiet threat. The Alpha King. My body remembered every rule at once. Stand, bow, apologize, vanish. But my muscles forgot how to move, and my mouth mislaid the map of words. I didn't mean, I managed, half rising. His gaze, storm gray with a ring of winter around the iris, cut through me, through the air around me, through the floor if I let it. "Stay," he said. The word slid into my bones and locked. I sat. Whispers traveled like brush fire on dry tongues. The elder's chant wavered, smoothed, found its line again. The Alpha didn't look away from the dais, but I could feel the shape of his attention, the way a bird can feel a hawk riding circles higher than clouds. A breath. That was all. He drew one in, quiet as a question. Then his jaw stilled. The pupils widened until the gray was a memory. The scent around us sharpened, turned hungry. Something in the room changed its weight. "What is that?" Someone breathed, too loud, too near. The scent, impure, not fully. The word they wanted fell like a blade. Half. Heat climbed my throat. My hands found each other and squeezed hard enough to argue. I stared straight ahead at the dais, at the elder's slow choreography, at the moonlight pooling in polished marble like a trap. He turned toward me, finally. Up close, the crown wasn't metal. It was the way he carried gravity. He leaned just a fraction, and the air between us thinned. "You are not full wolf," he said, careful, like he hated imprecision. I swallowed. "No, my lord. Human father," he said, not asking. "Yes." Silence like a door shutting softly. The kind that leaves a house echoing. Law didn't need to speak. It breathed through older mouths. The Alpha rose, grace made of restraint. He faced the gathered ranks, and even the chandeliers seemed to listen. "Continue," he told the elders. "I will question the Omega after." 1,000 eyes saw me at once, and none of them truly looked. I wanted to fold small enough to slip into my own ribs and live there. I wanted to run until the world forgot my name. Instead, I breathed. "Don't run," he said without looking, as if the thought had crept up his sleeve from my pulse. "I won't," I lied, but my voice didn't know how to make it sound convincing. The ceremony dragged its silk through the hours. Words about legacy and oaths floated above us like white birds that forgot how to land. I kept forgetting how to be a body. He kept remembering how to be a king. When the final vow broke across the marble, guards cut through the murmuring sea and dropped anchor at my aisle. "By decree of the Crescent Crown," one announced, "the Omega will remain for inspection." I rose. My knees argued. I made them obey. "Inspection," I echoed, tasting the word like I was checking it for poison. "Conversation," he corrected. The corner of his mouth a ghost of something like humor that hadn't stretched its legs in years. After, the crowd spilled out. Perfume, fur, whispers like the hiss of a blade sheathing. Abomination, impurity, omen. The doors shut, sound rolling away like a tide that decided it didn't want to drown anyone after all. Only the two of us and the echo of the moons remained. He moved first, a measured step that pulled the room with it. "Your scent," he said. "Lower now. Closer. It shouldn't exist." "I'll apologize to the moon," I said, because fear pulls strange jokes out of throats that don't want to shake. He ignored the bait, or pocketed it for later. "Come," he said, and turned toward a balcony where the night waited like a patient verdict. The cold kissed the back of my neck. Beyond the balustrade, the Capitol sprawled, roofs like scales, alleyways like veins, the valley's black river a blade laid flat. The moons were different tonight, too near, too listening. "Half-blood destabilizes the bond," he said, watching the city instead of me. "It weakens the shift. It breaks pacts." "Then you should keep your distance," I replied, and tried to make my voice sound like I wasn't asking him to. "I should," he agreed. The wind lifted his coat, and the scent of pine moved under my skin like a promise. Yet, I echoed. And that single syllable felt like stepping off something and trusting the dark to be a floor. His gaze slid to my throat, to the pulse that hadn't gotten the message about dignity. "What are you hiding, Omega?" "Nothing worth a king's time," I said. The truth tucked itself behind my teeth like a cut-you tongue out of habit. "Everything worth my time smells like danger," he murmured, and stepped closer until breath remembered itself, and the distance between us learned politeness. Then the night lifted its head and screamed. A howl, too sharp for distance, too desperate for ceremony. Another, nearer. The guards at the far arch turned as one. The Alpha's hand went to his blade. Shadows unhooked from walls and walked. "Inside," he ordered, already moving, but the first arrow hissed past his cheek and took a bite of stone instead. I flinched. He didn't. They came masked and hungry, wrapped in borrowed courage and somebody else's hate. Eyes red with tinctured moonfire, claws lacquered in poison. The kind of faction that moved like they'd rehearsed treason in a mirror. He hit the first one so fast, the man's fear didn't have time to become regret. The second met the balustrade and learned why marble was called unforgiving. The third slid past his guard and lunged for me. Something old inside me reached up and grabbed my wrist. Heat tore through my bones. White, clean, absolute. The air around my skin shimmered. For a heartbeat, the world lost interest in edges. I moved, and the movement wasn't mine alone. My palm met his chest, and the sound he made wasn't human or honorable. He flew. Stone complained when he met it. My lungs burned with a smell like frost left over from a fire. When the light under my skin blinked out, the Alpha was already staring, gray burned to molten, nostrils flared, control shaved thin. "You shifted," he said. "No," I whispered, and hated the shake in it. "I can't." "Then what was that?" The truth had no language yet. "I don't know," another attacker lunged. He didn't make it halfway. The Alpha stepped into him and turned that body into a lesson about physics and disrespect. Two more tried a pincer. One learned what a king's elbow could do to a jaw. The other tasted railing and a swift education in gravity. The last man broke and ran. The Alpha didn't chase. He pivoted back to me, breath even, blood cooling on his knuckles. "Inside," he said again, but softer. "Now." We crossed the threshold as the bells took a breath to decide whether to ring. The hall felt bigger empty. We stood in the same aisle where I'd fallen, where he'd told me to stay, where a single breath had told the room too much. Moonlight slid across the marble and made shadows into questions. "Who sent them?" I asked. "People who prefer their stories simple," he said. "People who don't like the moon ignoring their script." His gaze came back to me and stayed. "What are you?" he asked, and for the first time the question didn't feel like a knife. It felt like a hand held out in a room where everyone else was holding stones. "I had a mother who didn't tell me enough," I said. "A father who died before I learned to ask. I have a shift that doesn't arrive and a scent that shouldn't. I have a life that's quieter than the rumors about it. And you have this." He reached, slow, and stopped an inch from my wrist, the place that still remembered light. "This answer that didn't ask permission." "I didn't call it," I said. "It called me." The corners of his mouth moved like he'd unlocked an expression and wasn't sure if he had the right to use it. And it answered when you were cornered. Good. Good? I nearly laughed. Half the hall wants to burn me before dawn. Dawn is a long way off, he said, and the way he said it made me feel like dawn worked for him. You'll be tested. The elders will chant. The law will search for a safe shape to take. In the meantime, I asked, because his voice had changed shape too. In the meantime, you'll be my guest. He said it as if hospitality were a weapon, and he was very careful with the edge. I thought I was under inspection. You are. That almost smile again, gone as soon as the moon noticed. And protection. Protection from your own would-be Luna's friends? I shouldn't have said it. I did. His eyes cooled. Protection from anyone who confuses tradition with permission. Silence settled like soft dust. Somewhere deep in the hall, a door latched. Somewhere outside, a wolf learned the taste of its own blood. What do I call you? I asked. When I'm not calling you my lord, in my head, and regretting every syllable. He studied me for a breath. You call me what everyone does. Which is? King? I should have bowed. I didn't. Maybe fate put a finger on my spine and said stay. Maybe stubbornness wore perfume that night. King, I said, and the word didn't splinter my teeth. If I stay, it's because I choose it. His gaze sharpened. Then he nodded once, as if a decision he'd already made heard footsteps catching up. Good, he said. I prefer choices to obedience. A guard appeared at the threshold, breath tight, eyes fixed somewhere past us. Your Majesty, perimeter secured. 3 dead, 2 captured, no markings. Move the captives to the lower cells, he ordered without looking away. Blood guard on every door until dawn. The guard vanished like a thought that remembered its place. The Alpha stepped back just enough for air to learn how to be air again. Rest, he said. Tomorrow we ask the moon what you are. And if the moon answers wrong? I tried to make a joke out of it. It came out like I'd swallowed the edge of a blade. Then I argue with the moon, he said simply, and turned away before I could ask how often kings won arguments with. Celestial bodies. I was halfway to the guest corridor when his voice caught. Me by the wrist without touching. Don't. Run, he said a 3rd time. Not a command. A request wrapped like one. I looked back over my shoulder. The hall put him in a frame of marble and light. For a heartbeat, he didn't look like a crown. He looked like a man who'd been forced to be one since the first day his bones learned the weight of duty. I'll be here, I said, and for once the truth in my voice shook hands. In the quiet of the borrowed room, I sat on the edge of a bed that smelled like cedar and long decisions. I pressed my fingers to my wrist. No light. Just the echo of it, like a promise that wasn't finished making itself. Beyond the window, the moons leaned close, curious. Somewhere below, steel whispered against steel, and men swore oaths they'd already broken once tonight. And in the corridor, heavy footfalls took up positions at my door, protection wearing the same boots as prison. I lay back. My heart argued with sleep, and sleep refused to debate. When it finally found me, it smelled like pine and storm, and a voice I shouldn't have listened to twice. I dreamed of a seat I shouldn't have taken, and a single breath that found me anyway. Chapter 2. A scent that isn't allowed. The palace didn't sleep. Even when the moon sank, their reflections prowled the corridors, thin rivers of light sliding over stone and steel. I followed a guard through them, counting doors to calm my breathing. Every step echoed like proof that I was still here, still under orders, still alive by permission. They put me in a chamber lined with sigils, wolves etched in silver leaf, claws locked around the crown. The air smelled of iron and incense, power trying to disguise fear. When the door shut, the sound carried a promise. Stay, but don't belong. I sat by the fire until its warmth felt borrowed. Outside the heavy window, dawn crawled up the horizon, slow and reluctant. Somewhere in the courtyard, soldiers changed shifts. I imagined them talking about the half-breed locked upstairs, the one the king hadn't executed yet. Then the latch clicked. He entered without ceremony. The Alpha King filled the doorway like an argument the world couldn't win. He'd shed the formal coat. Plain leather and scars wore the crown for him now. "Did you sleep?" he asked. "I tried," I said. "The walls pray too loud." He almost smiled. Almost. They're warded against the warp, against demons, against everything except questions. Then maybe they should start on those. He came closer, stopping by the edge of the fire. The orange light bit at the sharpness of his jaw, gentling nothing. "The council meets at dusk. They'll decide what to do with you. And what do you want to do with me?" Silence stretched. "Understand what you are," I laughed, small and cracked. "Join the queue." He studied me, nostrils flaring again. The same cautious inhale that had stopped the world last night. I felt it as pressure against my pulse, as if scent alone could peel me open. "There's something old in your blood," he murmured. "Not human, not wolf. Something that hums when the moons rise. Maybe it's just nerves. Maybe it's the reason those assassins came through the gate." My breath hitched. "You think they were after me?" "I don't think," he said. "I've seen the pattern before. Fear wears masks. Jealousy pays them." He moved to the table, poured water into a silver cup, handed it to me. My fingers brushed his, warm, steady, dangerous. The contact burned through the pretense of calm. "Drink," he said. The water tasted of metal and discipline. "You don't trust me enough to leave me alone," I said. "But you trust me enough to drink your water?" His eyes caught mine. "If you were poison, Omega, I'd already be dead." A knock split the moment. The door opened, revealing a man robed in white, carrying a staff carved with the runes of the moon priesthood. His gaze flicked to me, disapproval drawn like a blade. "Majesty," he said, bowing stiffly, "the council demands the impurity be examined before dusk. There are rumors. Some claim she's a curse born of forbidden rites." "Rumors bore me," the king said. "Facts interest me. We'll test her under my supervision." The priest's lips tightened. "Your presence will only validate her existence." "Then she should thank me for the favor," he replied. And the man bowed out, defeated by the weight of rank. When the door shut again, he looked back at me. "They'll make a spectacle of it. You'll stand before the elders, breathe under their incense, let their seers scratch truth from your veins. And if the truth isn't what they want," his jaw set, "then they'll call it heresy." He crossed to the window, the morning light tracing the scar along his throat. "I can't protect you if you lie to them." "I'm not lying," I said. "I don't know what I am." He turned. "Then we find out together." The day dragged toward judgment. By the time the torches were lit along the corridor, my pulse had learned to beat in rhythm with fear. 2 guards escorted me through halls older than memory, each wall carved with the names of past kings. None of them had ever claimed a half-breed. The chamber of elders smelled of candle smoke and sanctity. They sat in a circle, silver eyes reflecting the fire pit at the center. When I stepped inside, the murmuring stopped. "In the name of the moon and pack," intoned the high elder, "we summon truth from the blood of the unbound." They pricked my palm. My blood hit the fire and hissed, blue sparks rising instead of red. The elders leaned forward, breath sharp. One whispered, "Hybrid witchery." Another, "Impossible." The Alpha King's voice cut through them. "Enough." He stepped between me and their verdict, shoulders squared. "She stands under my protection until the test concludes. She defies nature," one snarled. "Nature," he said, "seems to enjoy defiance." The fire flared higher, matching his tone. I watched his shadow stretch across the circle, broad, certain, dangerous. For the first time, fear bent backward into something else, the fragile start of trust. When the ritual ended, the flames settled into a strange, calm glow, silver at the edges, like the moon caught in water. The High Elder rose. "She carries lunar essence. It has chosen her." Gasps circled the room. The Alpha's gaze found mine. In his eyes there was calculation, curiosity, and something softer trying to survive both. "Then she isn't abomination," he said. "She's omen," the Elder hesitated. Omen can bless or destroy. Then we'll decide which, he said. Together. As I followed him out, the doors closed behind us with the finality of a prophecy sealing itself. The corridors smelled of smoke and new storms. He stopped halfway to the stairs, turning to face me fully. From this moment, he said, you don't leave my sight. That sounds like imprisonment. It sounds like survival. He started walking. I fell into step beside him, my heart caught between fear and the echo of his words. In the reflection of a window, the two of us moved through moonlight like a story neither of us had agreed to tell, but both were already part of. Chapter 3. Interrogation in Moonlight. The night returned draped in mist, the palace wrapped tight around its own heartbeat. Torches burned along the corridor, their smoke whispering words only stone could hear. He led me to the observatory at the highest tier. The stairs coiled like the spine of a mountain, each step measured, silent, deliberate. The chamber we reached opened to the sky, no ceiling, only a dome of glass and the pale moon staring back. I should have been cold, but the air shimmered with heat drawn from him. This, he said, motioning toward the runic circle etched into the floor, is where truth refuses to hide. I thought we already tested that, I said. That was the Elder's truth. This one is mine, he stepped closer. The scent of pine and iron filled my lungs until it felt like breathing him in. Sit. I obeyed. The runes beneath my feet glowed faintly, silver threading through the cracks like veins under skin. He circled me once, slow, eyes studying every shiver I failed to hide. Your blood answered the moon. I need to know why. Ask her, I said, tilting my head toward the sky. She answers only those who listen, he murmured, and crouched until his shadow swallowed mine. Tell me what happens when you dream. I almost laughed. You make that sound dangerous. It usually is. I hesitated, then spoke. I see light underwater, wolves made of it. A woman standing between two moons, one black, one silver. She calls me by a name I don't know. And then, I wake up choking on air that doesn't belong here. He didn't blink. Loonbound, he said under his breath. Half wolf, half mooncaster. A myth the elders buried because it frightened them. And you? I asked. Are you frightened? He reached out, stopped just short of touching my throat. No, I'm curious. Lightning flashed somewhere beyond the hills, thunder rolling slow behind it. The moons brightened, turning the runes into living silver. He drew a knife from his belt, not iron but something darker, obsidian laced with runic sigils. This won't hurt, he said. That's what liars say. I'm a king, he replied. We don't have time to lie. The blade nicked my palm. My blood welled, brighter than before, flecked with light. He watched it drip into the circle, eyes widening as the runes shifted hue, from silver to pale gold. The glow rose around us, spiraling. The air hummed. His aura met mine halfway, collided, merged, flared, the bond testing itself like muscle rediscovering strength. His breath hitched. The moons recognize you, I swallowed. Is that good or bad? Both, he said softly. It means you don't belong to them anymore. You belong to yourself. The glow dimmed, leaving silence in its wake. He stood, sliding the blade away. For a moment, neither of us moved. The closeness wasn't command anymore. It was gravity. You'll stay in the eastern wing, he said finally, under my guard. The council will howl, but I'll handle them. You're risking your crown, I whispered. Let them have the crown, he answered. I keep what the moon gives me. His eyes caught the light, softer now, almost human. Rest. Tomorrow we see what your dreams want. As I walked back through the corridor, guards falling into step behind, the moons followed across the windows. My palm still glowed faintly where the knife had kissed it. Somewhere inside the palace, a bell tolled the changing hour. Somewhere deeper, the bond I hadn't asked for began to pulse, slow, steady. Certain the Alpha King might have been interrogating me, but the truth was simpler. Something older than both of us had already started answering. Chapter 4. The Hunt. Outside the hall. The palace slept. But peace never did. Outside my window, the courtyard shimmered under the twin moons, pale light crawling across the walls like ghosts too proud to leave. Wind whispered through the open arches, carrying the scent of rain and iron. I should have been resting. Instead, I paced. The floor was cool under my bare feet, the silence thick enough to bruise. Every few breaths, I glanced at the door, half expecting guards, half expecting ghosts. When the moonlight touched my wounded palm, it pulsed faintly, silver veins threading across my skin before fading. It didn't hurt, it hummed, like a song waiting to be remembered. Then the air changed. It was subtle at first, like the palace inhaled and forgot to exhale. The torches along the wall flickered blue for half a second and my heart stuttered. A draft brushed against my neck, but the windows were closed. Something was wrong. I crossed to the window, scanning the courtyard below. Shadows moved against the walls, not the kind cast by moonlight, but the kind that moved back. Then I saw it, armor glinting faintly between hedges, the curve of a drawn bow, the glint of poisoned metal. Not palace guards, assassins. Again. Before I could shout, the door burst open. Down! The Alpha King moved like thunder, silent, unstoppable, inevitable. His hand caught my shoulder, pulling me down just as a crossbow bolt shattered the glass behind me. He didn't ask how I knew. He didn't ask why they'd come. He already knew the answer. The Luna's loyalists, he muttered, scanning the shadows. They move faster than the council. I felt heat crawl up my throat. They came for me. His jaw tightened. No, they came for what you mean. He stepped into the moonlight, eyes burning gold. His voice deepened, command layered with fury. Stay behind me, I didn't argue. Not because I wanted to obey, but because my body refused to move any other way. Figures dropped from the walls, 8, maybe 10. Cloaked, masked, blades drawn, they moved like smoke, silent, but not unseen. The first reached him. He caught the man's wrist mid-strike, twisted, and drove him into the ground hard enough to make stone crack. The second came from behind. The Alpha pivoted, claws flashing, throat tearing soundlessly. The rest hesitated, and then came for me. I tried to back away, but one lunged too fast. His dagger caught my arm. Pain flared sharp and bright. Instinct screamed and the world slowed. My blood hit the floor. Silver again. Light burst from the wound, spilling across the stones. The attacker froze mid-step, eyes wide as moonfire wrapped my wrist. I felt it rise, energy that wasn't human, wasn't wolf, wasn't anything I'd ever called mine. The Alpha turned just in time to see it happen. The moon above flared, responding to the pulse inside me. My body moved on its own, spinning, striking, a beam of pale fire erupting from my hand. It hit the nearest assassin square in the chest. He screamed once before dissolving into ash. The rest faltered. The Alpha's expression shifted. Shock first, then something else. Something like recognition. He moved again, fast and sure. Together we fought. His strength and precision, my wild, untrained bursts of light. He tore through them with practiced rage. I flung shards of moonlight that melted through steel and shadow alike. When the last one fell, silence returned heavy and absolute. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The courtyard was a battlefield painted in silver. My arm trembled, still glowing faintly where the cut refused to close. He looked at me, eyes molten, breath steady. "You disobeyed my order," he said quietly. "I saved your life. You also terrified half the spirits of this courtyard. Add them to the list." A ghost of a smile touched his lips, then serious again. "That power, don't call it unless I'm with you." "I didn't call it," I whispered. "It called me." He stepped closer, inspecting the wound. "You're bleeding light. That's not supposed to happen. Nothing about me is supposed to happen." He exhaled slowly, looking up at the moons. "The council will lose their minds." "Good," I said. "They can borrow mine." He laughed, quiet, genuine, unguarded. It startled both of us. Then he turned back toward the shadows, scanning the horizon. They won't stop. Not after tonight, I followed his gaze. The forest beyond the walls rippled under the wind, the trees swaying like they were whispering secrets. What do we do? I asked. He glanced over his shoulder. We hunt first. You mean they hunted us? I said, and failed. His voice dropped to something darker. Now we return the favor. The moons shifted higher, their light sharpening the edges of his armor. For a heartbeat, I saw not a king or a killer, but something older. An alpha who'd fought the world long before it had learned his name. He looked back at me, eyes softening just slightly. You fight like you've done it before. I haven't, I said honestly. But fear teaches fast. Then let me be your teacher, he said. Something in my chest stuttered. The bond between us thrumming again, low, insistent, alive. Before I could speak, he stepped closer, just enough for his voice to drop to a whisper that felt like a vow. You're not prey anymore. Then he turned, cloak sweeping through the moonlight, and disappeared into the darkness beyond the archway, leaving the scent of storm and promise behind. I stood alone in the silence he left, the faint silver in my blood still glowing, the moons watching from above. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, and that terrified me more than anything else. Chapter 5. Edict of Doubt morning arrived without warmth. The sky above the capital burned a dull, bruised gray, and the air hung heavy with unease. From my chamber window, I watched as banners swayed weakly over the palace towers, symbols of loyalty that no longer felt loyal. The whispers had already begun. They drifted through the halls like smoke that knew where it was going. The half-breed lives. The Alpha protects her. The Council will not allow it. I wrapped my arm with linen, though the faint silver glow still pulsed beneath. Every heartbeat was a reminder of the power I didn't understand, of the danger it brought, of the man who refused to turn away from it. When the door opened, I didn't flinch. He filled the threshold the way storms filled the horizon, quiet, controlled, but one word away from ruin. You didn't sleep, he said. Neither did you. He didn't argue. Instead, he handed me a cloak, black, hooded, simple. The council has called an assembly. They demand your presence. I slipped it on. Let me guess. They're not here to congratulate me on my new magic trick. His mouth twitched once, almost a smile. They call it a disturbance of divine order. Sounds poetic. Terrifying, but poetic. He offered his hand. Not as command, but protection. Whatever happens, you stay silent until I say otherwise. I hesitated before taking it. His palm was warm, steady, an anchor in a sea that wanted to drown me. The council hall was carved from the mountain itself. Pillars of white stone soared into darkness, etched with the names of every alpha lineage since the first moon rose. I felt their judgment in the walls. 12 elders sat on elevated thrones arranged in a half-circle, their faces half hidden behind silver masks. The High Elder's voice broke the silence. Bring forward the one who defies the bloodline. My steps echoed as I crossed the floor. Each sound bounced off stone like a reminder that I shouldn't exist. The Alpha King stood beside me, radiating authority that silenced even the whispers of disapproval. She is under my protection, he said evenly. You will address her with respect. The High Elder's gaze sharpened. Protection does not rewrite law, Majesty. The mating ceremony is sacred. Her presence there tainted its sanctity. I was unaware sacredness could be so fragile, he replied. A murmur spread through the chamber. The High Elder's tone grew sharper. You risk your throne for a hybrid that bleeds corruption. We have seen the signs, the silver blood, the moonfire. The Alpha stepped forward, his voice a calm storm. What you call corruption, I call power. Power that could save this realm if you'd stop choking it with superstition. The words hung heavy. The elders looked at one another, torn between outrage and fear. One of them, a woman with cold eyes and colder faith, spoke next. You've grown reckless, Majesty. A king ruled by sentiment is no king at all. His gaze met hers, unflinching. And a council ruled by fear is no council worth obeying. The The High Elder struck his staff against the floor. Then let the Edict of Doubt be declared. Until her nature is proven pure, she shall be bound, her freedom suspended, her blood tested under the moonfire again. I felt my chest tighten. Bound? I whispered. The Alpha's growl rolled through the chamber. No one binds her. Even you cannot deny an edict, the Elder snapped. He turned slowly, deliberately. The authority in his voice filled the room. Then let the edict include me. Gasps echoed. If she is to stand trial for what she is, he continued, then I stand beside her. Whatever judgment you pass upon her falls upon your king as well. The silence that followed was suffocating. I stared at him, disbelief twisting into something else, something sharp and fragile that I didn't dare name. Why? I asked softly. You don't even know what I am. His eyes found mine. I don't need to know what you are. I know what you are not. You're not the monster they're trying to make you. The High Elder leaned forward. You would risk the throne for this? The Alpha's voice was quiet, but it carried like thunder. For truth, yes. For her, absolutely. Every word struck the marble like an oath that couldn't be taken back. When the council adjourned, the chamber emptied in uneasy silence. The Alpha waited until the doors closed behind us before speaking. They'll come for you again, he said. Not just with blades, with lies, with fear. I looked up at him. And what about you? You just challenged the elders. They'll turn on you too. They already have, he said simply. But kings are harder to kill than rumors. We walked the corridor side by side, the air thick with everything unspoken. At the end of the hall, I stopped. You shouldn't protect me, I said quietly. It'll destroy you. He turned, eyes fierce. Maybe destruction is overdue, I wanted to argue. I wanted to tell him I wasn't worth it, but before I could speak, he stepped closer, his voice low enough that only the walls could hear. They call it an edict of doubt, he said. I call it a test of faith. Faith in what? In the bond, he said. In the truth. In you. And as the sound of distant thunder rumbled through the mountains, I realized that the edict wasn't meant to destroy me. It was meant to reveal what I truly was. Chapter 6. Lessons in breathing. The days after the edict blurred into long corridors of whispers and silence. Every servant who passed me bowed too low. Every soldier avoided my eyes. The palace had become a cage wrapped in gold, a place where walls listened, and silence was another form of judgment. But the Alpha King kept his word. He didn't leave me alone to drown in fear. That morning, he found me in the training court, a wide terrace open to the wind, where the sky spilled light across white stone. The mountains beyond the walls gleamed sharp and distant, like the edges of old promises. He came without his guards, only a black tunic, rolled sleeves, and that unyielding stillness that felt more dangerous than any weapon. You didn't eat, he said. I looked down at the untouched tray beside me. Hard to eat when you're waiting for the moon to decide whether you deserve to exist. Then let's give the moon something worth deciding on. He stepped into the courtyard, motioning for me to follow. We train. Train? I echoed. In what? How to not explode. His eyes flashed, a glimmer of amusement beneath the steel. Exactly, he began with breath. Power isn't just in blood, he said. It's in rhythm. The wolf, the moon, they breathe in patterns. Find yours, and your magic will obey instead of consume. I tried. Inhale. Exhale. The first few times, the light flickered faintly beneath my skin. Silver veins crawled across my hands, then vanished. Good, he murmured, circling me. Now again, slower. I closed my eyes. The world narrowed to heartbeat and wind. His voice was low, steady, guiding, not commanding. Fear is breath held too long, he said. Release it, I did. And the power responded, not in a burst this time, but a glow. Gentle. Controlled. Like moonlight learning how to stay still. When I opened my eyes, his expression had softened, the faintest pride hiding behind restraint. Better, he said. I smirked. You sound surprised. Not surprised, he said. Relieved. We practiced for hours. Control, focus, grounding. He taught me to feel the energy before it sparked, to hold it at the edge of thought. My arms trembled, my lungs burned, but with every failed attempt, something inside me began to steady. When the light flared too high, he was always there, hand on my wrist, grounding me before it burned through. Each touch sent heat racing through me that had nothing to do with magic. By the time dusk settled, I was drenched in sweat, the sky painted with bleeding gold. "You're improving fast," he said, watching as I caught my breath. "I had a good teacher," I managed. He gave me a look that could have been pride or warning. "Don't flatter me. I might believe you." Before I could answer, a new voice echoed from behind the columns. "She will need more than breathing lessons if she is to survive the council's next trial." The healer witch stepped forward, wrapped in a cloak of woven dusk. Her hair was silver white, eyes pale as frost. She moved like someone who had seen every secret the moon ever tried to hide. "Master Sarah," the Alpha greeted her. "You came." "Your summons was hard to ignore," she said, glancing at me. "So this is the half-blood the council fears." Her gaze lingered on my arm, where faint light still shimmered beneath the skin. "You carry lunar essence," she murmured, "but your human blood dilutes its balance. That's why it burns instead of bends. Can you fix it?" I asked. She smiled faintly. "Power isn't a wound to be stitched, child. It's a heartbeat that must be taught a rhythm." She raised her hand, pressing 2 fingers to my temple. The air thickened. My vision blurred. Suddenly, I wasn't in the courtyard, but standing under a vast field of stars, my reflection mirrored in a lake that glowed with moonlight. "Breathe," her voice whispered inside my skull. "Let it find you," I inhaled. The air filled my chest like silver smoke. When I exhaled, the water rippled and my reflection changed. My eyes gleamed brighter. My hair lifted in the invisible wind. For a moment I saw her, the woman from my dreams, standing beside me watching with a sad, proud smile. Mother. Then it was gone. The vision shattered, and I stumbled back into the courtyard. Sarah steadied me. "Your blood remembers her." "That's good. Memory is magic's oldest language." The Alpha stepped forward, studying me. "What did you see?" "My mother," I said softly, and the moon didn't look angry anymore. He nodded, thoughtful. "Then you're learning." Sarah turned to him. "She'll need rest, and distance from the council. Their doubt feeds the imbalance." His tone sharpened. "They won't touch her again." "You can't shield her forever," the witch said. "The more she controls her power, the more they'll fear her. And fear, my king, is always hungry." With that, she bowed and slipped away, vanishing into the dusk as quietly as she'd come. Later, under the rising moons, I found him still in the courtyard, gazing out over the valley. His cloak stirred in the cold wind. "You didn't have to stay," I said, approaching softly. "I told you, you don't face this alone." I hesitated. "Why are you really helping me?" He turned then, his eyes silver in the moonlight. "Because I've seen power destroy those who tried to cage it. And because," his voice dropped lower, "because the moment I caught your scent, I knew the world was about to change. I just didn't realize how much." The words hung between us, heavy with things neither of us dared name. I looked away, heart racing. "That sounds like trouble." "It usually is," he said, smiling faintly. "But I've always liked trouble." For a moment, the king didn't look like a ruler burdened by thrones or wars. He looked like a man who'd finally found something worth fighting for. The moons climbed higher. The wind grew colder, and in that quiet, forbidden space between fear and feeling, I learned something no elder could ever teach. Sometimes power isn't the light inside you. It's the hand that steadies it. Chtarka, the promise, he regrets. The palace buzzed like a wound that refused to close. Every hall whispered his name. Every shadow repeated mine. And between those whispers, a truth neither of us had dared to speak grew louder with every heartbeat. For days after the training, he avoided me, not out of anger, but something heavier. Something that sounded like guilt. I saw him only in fragments. A glimpse through the council corridor, armor gleaming like stormlight. A brief nod during meal hours, his expression unreadable. He spoke to everyone but me. At first, I told myself I didn't care. Then I realized I'd started listening for his footsteps without meaning to. It was evening when the storm came. Rain fell in sheets, drumming against the glass of the eastern wing. I sat by the fire, watching flames fight shadows, when the door opened without a knock. He entered, drenched, his cloak heavy with water and tension. His hair clung to his temples, his eyes darker than I'd ever seen them. "You shouldn't be here," I said quietly. "I needed to be," he replied. His voice wasn't command tonight. It was confession. He crossed the room slowly, stopping just short of the firelight. "The council has moved faster than I expected. They demand a royal union to restore order." "Union?" I asked, though the word already tasted bitter on my tongue. "A marriage," he said, "between the Crescent Crown and the bloodline of Dareth. The Luna they wanted for you," I said flatly. He nodded once. "It was promised long before this, before you." I stood. "Before me, right?" He looked up, pain flashing behind restraint. "You think I wanted this?" "I think it doesn't matter what you want," I said. "Kings don't get to want." The words landed hard enough to silence us both. Rain thundered against the glass, trying to fill the quiet. He stepped closer. It was a political promise. To end a war that cost thousands. I made it when I was still too young to understand what it meant to trade peace for chains. I forced a laugh that felt more like breaking. "And now you'll keep it, to prove you're still their perfect king." He shook his head. "No, to keep my people alive. By killing yourself slowly?" His gaze snapped to mine, raw and unguarded. "You think I don't know what this will cost? Then why not fight it? Because war isn't fought only with blades. Sometimes it's fought with silence, with sacrifice." I took a step forward, anger rising faster than logic. "And what am I then? A secret you'll bury to keep peace?" He didn't answer. That silence said enough. The power beneath my skin stirred, unwanted, emotional. The air shimmered faintly around me, silver light threading across my arms. "Don't," he said gently. "Not like this." "Tell me it's not real," I whispered. "The bond, the way you look at me. Tell me it's just the magic." He hesitated. "Too long." "Tell me," I repeated louder now, the room trembling with the energy I couldn't contain. Finally he spoke. "It's real." The words hit harder than any lie could have. "I can't give you the crown," he said quietly. "But I can't give you up either." I turned away before the tears could win. "Then you'll lose both." Lightning cracked across the sky, splitting the silence. The moons hid behind clouds, as if they couldn't bear to watch. The next morning, the news spread like wildfire. The Alpha King would marry the Dareth Luna by full moon. The council cheered. The Pax rejoiced. The court called it divine order restored. But the corridors where I walked grew colder. Servants bowed lower, soldiers looked away faster. Even the guards at my door no longer met my eyes. By nightfall, I couldn't stand the walls anymore. I slipped past the guards, barefoot and cloaked, and climbed the narrow stairs to the tower balcony, the one where the moons always felt close enough to touch. I stood there in the wind, staring at the glowing horizon. The ceremony banners were already being raised across the city below. "Are you running?" His voice came from behind me. I didn't turn. "Would it matter if I said yes?" "It would matter to me. Why?" "Because you'd have to order someone to bring me back?" He came to stand beside me. The wind caught his cloak, snapping it like a heartbeat. "No," he said softly, "because I'd go after you myself." I looked up at him, the hurt still raw. "You made your choice." "I made a mistake," he corrected. "A promise I no longer believe in." "Then break it." "I can't, not yet." The storm in my chest finally cracked. "Then stop pretending you care, because this—" I pressed a hand against my heart, the silver light flickering faintly beneath the skin. "This is breaking me." His hand closed gently over mine. His touch was steady, grounding. "You think I don't feel it too?" I wanted to pull away. I didn't. The wind died. The moons peeked through the clouds again, washing us in their cold glow. You told me once that fear is breath held too long, I said quietly. Maybe love is too, he exhaled slowly. Then let's see how long we can keep breathing. For a heartbeat, the world held still. Two souls suspended between duty and desire. Bound by a bond neither had chosen, but both had stopped denying. Then the palace bells rang midnight. Reality came crashing back. He stepped away first. Rest, he said, voice low. Tomorrow we'll find a way to change fate. And if we can't? He looked at me, eyes fierce with a vow he hadn't spoken aloud. Then fate will have to learn how to bleed. When he left, the door closed softly, but the echo of his promise stayed. And for the first time, I believed that maybe, just maybe, he meant it. Chapter 8. Trial by Moonfire. The bells began before dawn. They rang not in celebration, but in warning. Long, hollow peals that rolled through the mountains and sank into bone. Every tone said the same thing: Judgment Day. By the time the sons of morning touched the palace steps, the courtyards were already full. Pack leaders, council priests, nobles draped in silver and spite. The crowd shimmered with fear disguised as curiosity. At the center of it all, the circle of moonfire waited, 12 pillars of stone carved with ancient runes, surrounding a basin filled with silvery flames that never burned out. That was where I was to stand, where truth would be revealed, where they would decide if I lived or died. The Alpha King stood beside me, armor gleaming dark under the twin moons that hadn't yet set. His expression was unreadable, but his energy was storm-tight, controlled rage wrapped in calm. He didn't look at me. He didn't need to. The bond pulsed faintly between us, steady and alive. I could feel the rhythm of his heartbeat matching mine. The council will begin the rites at the first chime, he said quietly. Whatever happens, don't fight the fire. Let it see you. Let it see me? I whispered. You sound like I'm about to meet the gods. Maybe you are. Before I could answer, the High Elder stepped forward, staff striking the stone 3 times. The flames in the basin flared, licking at the sky like liquid lightning. By decree of the council, he intoned, the half-blood stands before the moonfire. Her blood shall be tested. Her soul shall be weighed. If she carries corruption, let the flame consume. If she carries truth, let it bless. The crowd murmured, the sound like waves crashing against fear. The guards moved closer. I stepped forward. The heat hit me first, intense, living, almost sentient. The flames shimmered silver and blue, whispering in tongues that weren't made for mortal throats. The Alpha's voice brushed against my thoughts through the bond. Breathe. Remember the rhythm. I took a breath. Inhale, exhale. The same lessons he'd drilled into me. The same calm that Sarah had taught me to find when power trembled beneath my skin. The High Elder raised his staff. Step into the light. I did. The moonfire surged upward, wrapping around me like liquid silk. Heat flooded my veins, but it didn't burn. It sang. Whispers rippled through the crowd. The flames should have consumed me, but they danced instead. Curling around my body, weaving through my hair, spiraling down my arms in glowing strands. Then something else happened. The silver turned gold. The runes on the pillars lit up one by one, symbols older than the packs themselves. The flames roared higher, and the ground trembled beneath us. The High Elder stumbled back, eyes wide. This is impossible. The Alpha stepped forward, voice hard. No, this is destiny. The flames began to take shape. Out of the light rose a figure, tall, feminine, cloaked in silver mist. Her eyes were made of moons. Her voice, when she spoke, echoed across every heart present. She is mine. The crowd gasped. Some fell to their knees. The spectral figure turned toward me, reaching out. Child of 2 worlds, born under silence, chosen by light. You carry both the blood and the blessing. I couldn't breathe. Who are you? The first howl, she said. The mother of moons. The moonfire pulsed brighter, wrapping around me completely. For a moment I wasn't standing in the courtyard. I was floating in light, hearing the heartbeat of the world. Every star, every howl, every drop of blood was a note in a song I was suddenly part of. Then it faded. When I opened my eyes again, the flames had receded, the crowd frozen in silence. The Alpha stepped forward, breaking the stillness. His voice carried across the courtyard, clear and commanding. The fire has spoken. She is no curse. She is loonbound, the bridge between our kind and the light we worship. The High Elder's staff trembled in his grip. That cannot be. The loonbound were myths, legends to frighten pups. Then your myths breathe again, the Alpha said, and she stands under my protection. Murmurs erupted through the crowd. Fear, awe, disbelief. The moonfire's reflection still shimmered faintly on my skin. The runes beneath my feet pulsed like a heartbeat. The High Elder slammed his staff down. Protection or not, such power will divide the realm. It will bring chaos. The Alpha's voice was iron. Then chaos will learn to kneel. He turned to me. His eyes, bright with silver fire, softened. You're not the threat, Omega. You're the balance. The flames around the basin flickered once, then bowed, like the moon itself was acknowledging him. For the first time since this began, the crowd didn't see a hybrid to fear. They saw something holy, something untamed. As the moonfire dimmed, the Alpha extended his hand toward me, not as a king offering protection, but as a man offering truth. I took it. The world didn't fall apart. It bowed. That night, the city didn't sleep. Bells rang, not in fear this time, but in disbelief. The abomination had survived the trial. The moon had chosen her. But deep within the palace, in the Hall of Mirrors, the High Elder met with shadows that didn't belong to men. She has the moon's favor, one of the dark figures whispered. We cannot strike her openly now. Then we strike through the heart that shields her, the Elder said, his reflection twisting into something cruel. The firelight flickered. Somewhere in the dark, a plan was born. And though I didn't know it then, the next test wouldn't come from the moon. It would come from love itself. Chapter 9. The attempted mark. The castle glowed under the twin moons like a cathedral of ghosts. Every torch flickered low, shadows stretching long and sharp across the marble. By decree, I was to rest after the trial. By instinct, I couldn't. The moonfire still lived under my skin. I could feel it, that soft pulse of power like a heartbeat that wasn't entirely mine. The flames had marked me, not with scars but with light. The world looked different now. Louder. Alive. Watching. They all watched. Servants who used to avert their eyes now stared when they thought I wouldn't notice. Some with awe, others with hate, and among them moved the one who wanted me gone the most, the Luna-to-be, Lady Arian of Dareth. The woman promised to the Alpha King. She found me at dusk, when the palace had grown quiet enough to hear lies breathing through the walls. I was crossing the Hall of Mirrors when she appeared at the far end, reflection after reflection gliding toward me until the real one stood in front of me. Tall, elegant, venom wrapped in silk. Your display today, she began, her tone sweet as poison, was impressive. I inclined my head slightly. I didn't do it for an audience. Of course not. You simply turned centuries of law upside down because it felt right. Her heels clicked against the marble as she circled me, eyes glinting. The Alpha should have burned you when he had the chance. But instead he brings you here, teaches you, defends you. Tell me, does he whisper the same words to you he once promised me? I stiffened. I wouldn't know. He doesn't mention you. Her laugh cut like glass. He wouldn't. He wants to forget the bond we share. But bonds, dear hybrid, don't forget. She stepped closer, her perfume sharp with wolfsbane. He was mine long before your cursed scent poisoned him. I'll remind him tonight. I turned to leave, but her voice followed, soft and cruel. Unless you'd like to stop me. The moonfire inside me stirred, but I swallowed it down. If you think you can control him with fear, you'll find he's stronger than that. Her smile sharpened. Then I'll aim lower. Before I could react, she flung a vial at my feet. Smoke exploded, silver choking heavy. The world tilted. My knees hit the ground. A burning numbness spread through my limbs. I tried to move, but my body refused. She crouched beside me, eyes glimmering cold. Moonbane gas. Even the blessed kneel before it. She drew a dagger, its blade engraved with binding runes. The council thinks you're untouchable now, but all magic has a counter-curse. One mark, and you'll be nothing but another lost half-breed. The dagger's tip glowed blue as she pressed it to my throat. Let's see if the moon still calls you chosen when your scent belongs to me. Pain flared, searing, bright, but before the blade could finish its arc, a roar split the air. The doors shattered. He moved through them like vengeance in human form, armor half-fastened, eyes molten gold, voice a thunder that cracked through the hall. Yen. She froze. The dagger fell from her hand, clattering across marble. Majesty, she stammered, stepping back. She attacked first. He didn't let her finish. He crossed the distance in a heartbeat, one hand seizing her by the throat. The glow of his eyes burned against her face. You dare touch what's under my protection? Her fingers clawed weakly at his wrist. You swore to marry me. I swore to protect my pack, he snarled. Not to chain myself to treachery. He flung her aside. She crashed into a pillar, gasping, humiliated. Guards flooded the doorway, uncertain whom to obey. He didn't look at them. He was already at my side. Breathe, he ordered, his hand against my jaw. The moment his touch met my skin, the moonfire stirred again, chasing away the poison. The smoke lifted like fog fleeing the sun. I'm all right, I whispered, though my voice shook. He turned his head slightly, eyes still glowing. You won't be if I lose control. Then don't. For a long moment he said nothing. Then his voice dropped, low and lethal. Take her, he told the guards. Confine her to the dungeons. Anyone who aids her answers to me directly. The guards hesitated only a second before obeying. Ariane screamed curses that echoed off the mirrored walls, her fury sharp and small compared to the silence he left in its wake. When they were gone, he exhaled hard, tension rippling through his shoulders. Why didn't you call for me? I tried, I said softly. She moved faster. He cursed under his breath, running a hand through his hair. They'll twist this. They'll say I struck my own betrothed for a witch. You did, I said, forcing a tired smile. And she deserved it. He almost smiled back. But the weight of the moment dragged it down. This changes everything. The council will use it to call for my removal. Then let them, I said. They've already called for my death. We'll be even. He looked at me for a long, searching second. Then he reached out, brushing the faint burn where the dagger had touched my neck. His thumb lingered over the mark, tracing it gently. She tried to claim you, he said, voice shaking with barely restrained fury. But you're already claimed. My breath caught. By who? His eyes met mine, and for once he didn't hide what burned there. By fate, he said. By the bond neither of us asked for, but both of us can undo. The moonfire in my veins responded, glowing faintly where his hand met my skin. We stood like that, silent, charged, suspended between danger and desire, until the first bell of midnight rang. When he finally spoke, it was barely above a whisper. She thought she could mark you with force, he said. But if you ever bear a mark again, it will be by choice. Yours. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. He turned toward the shattered doorway, voice darkening again. They'll come for me next. The council won't let this go unpunished. And what will you do? He looked back at me, and there was something almost like peace in his eyes. Whatever it takes to protect what's mine. Then he left, the echo of his footsteps fading into the long corridors of the palace, leaving behind only silence, the smell of smoke, and the faint shimmer of moonfire dancing in the air between us. Chapter 10, Exile or War Dawn, broke like a blade drawn slow, thin light slicing through the fog that blanketed the capital. The bells that had rung through the night were silent now, replaced by the uneasy hum of voices carried on the wind. I could feel it before anyone said a word. The air itself had changed. It wasn't just the storm that hung over the mountains. It was something heavier, a choice waiting to be made. When I stepped into the corridor, 2 guards were already waiting. The council summons you, one said. His voice trembled despite the armor. I didn't ask why. I already knew. The council hall was colder than usual. No torches burned. Only the gray light of dawn filtered through the narrow windows. The elders were already seated, masks on, silence sharp, and beside the throne stood the Alpha King. His armor was darker today, polished but battle-worn, the crest of his house faint beneath the scars. His eyes flicked to mine as I entered, brief but enough, a silent apology. The High Elder's staff struck the stone once. This council reconvenes to discuss the crimes of disruption and blood betrayal. My stomach tightened. Crimes? The Elder's gaze cut like ice. The attack on Lady Ariane of Dareth cannot be ignored. The Alpha King's actions in defense of you have divided the packs. She tried to kill me, I said evenly. Ask your guards who dragged her away. She was provoked, another elder spat. By your presence. You are the reason the balance crumbles. The Alpha's growl echoed through the chamber. Careful. But the High Elder raised his staff again. Majesty, enough. You have already disobeyed council law once. Do not tempt us again. They turned back to me. Half-blood, you have bewitched your king. You have stirred chaos in every pack that bows to the Crescent Crown. The Dareth alliance is broken. War brews at our borders. Your existence threatens us all. Then what do you want? I asked quietly. The elder didn't hesitate. Exile, beyond the northern ridge. If you leave, the alliance may yet be mended. If you stay, war will burn what remains. My breath caught. I looked at him, the Alpha King, my bond, the only thing that had ever felt like home, and saw the truth behind his eyes. He'd already known. He had come here ready to fight. And yet deep beneath that he carried fear, not for himself, but for the thousands who would bleed if he refused. Say it, I whispered. He didn't. He couldn't. So I did it for him. If my exile keeps your people safe, then I'll go. His hand twitched, a half step toward me, then stopped. No. His voice broke through the silence. I won't lose you to fear. You won't, I said. You'll lose me to mercy, the High Elder smiled thinly. Then it is decided. The staff struck the floor again, sealing the edict. Exile. They gave me until sundown. No escort, no farewells. Just a single order, leave and never return. I packed little. The cloak he'd given me, the bracelet Sarah had woven to balance my power, and the memory of his hand against mine in the firelight. When I reached the gates, the world was painted gold and crimson, the kind of sunset that looks too beautiful to trust. He was waiting. The Alpha stood alone. No guards, no crown, only the storm in his eyes. I won't let you do this, he said. You can't stop me, I replied gently. Watch me try. He stepped forward, closing the distance between us. The bond pulsed, alive, desperate. You think I care about their war? Their council? I'd burn the whole kingdom before I'd let them take you. Then you'd prove them right, I whispered. You'd be the tyrant they already call you. I don't care what they call me. You should. He flinched at that just a little. Enough for me to know it landed. I took his hand, pressing it against my heart. If you love me, let me go. His breath caught. Don't say that. It's the only way this ends without blood. He shook his head, voice breaking. You're asking me to survive you. No, I said softly. I'm asking you to believe in what will become when this is over. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. Then he stepped forward, wrapping me in his arms, tight, desperate, human. The world could have ended right there, and I wouldn't have noticed. When he finally pulled away, he leaned close, his lips brushing my temple. They can take my crown, he whispered, but they don't take my bond. I smiled through the tears I couldn't stop. Then we're even. He pressed something into my hand, a crest pendant, the mark of the Crescent Crown. If anyone questions who you are, he said, show them this. They'll know whose fire protects you. I tucked it close to my heart. Goodbye, my king, he shook his head. Not goodbye. Never goodbye. The gates opened with a groan. The wind swept through, cold and sharp. I stepped through without looking back, because I knew if I did, I'd never leave. The sun dipped below the horizon, and the world swallowed me whole. From the ramparts above, he watched until I disappeared beyond the ridge. When his guards approached asking for orders, he didn't answer. Finally, he said, "Send word to the northern watchtowers. If even the wind harms her, it answers to me." Then he turned away, his crown catching the dying light, and whispered to the silence, "I'll bring you home." Chapter 11. The Forest That Remembers. The northern ridges rose like teeth against the sky, black peaks cutting into clouds that moved like bruises. Wind clawed at my cloak. I had walked for 3 nights since the gates closed behind me, guided only by the moon that refused to stop following. Beyond the last outpost, the world changed. The air grew still, too still, and the trees began to hum, not sound, memory. Their bark shimmered faintly with traces of silver veins, the same light that had once burned in my blood. The witch Sarah's words came back to me. Memory is magic's oldest language. I stepped into the forest. Each breath thickened the air. The leaves above glowed softly, whispering in voices that belonged to no season. It felt as though the forest were exhaling stories into my skin. When the ground began to rise, I saw it. A ruin, half swallowed by roots and time. A circle of broken stone, carved with runes that pulsed faintly under moonlight. At the center stood an altar overgrown with vines and frost, and carved into the stone was a symbol I knew before my mind caught up. 2 moons entwined, 1 silver, 1 dark. My mother's pendant had carried the same mark. I touched the cold stone, and the world inhaled. Light burst outward, blinding, clean, alive. The forest vanished. In its place stretched a wide lake of silver water, perfectly still. On the far shore stood a woman wrapped in light, hair white as ash, eyes full of the kind of sorrow that knows every name. "Mother," I whispered. Her smile trembled. "Child of 2 worlds," she said. "You finally found your way home." My knees gave way, but her voice caught me. "You carry both halves of what I was forced to hide," she said. "Wolf and moon, flesh and light. You were never a mistake, only a secret." "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked. "Because truth too early is another form of death." The silver lake rippled, showing visions within its depths. The Alpha King standing before the council, the war banners of Dareth rising, the shadows gathering under the High Elder's command. "They are coming for him," she said, "for the bond you share." "I can't go back," I whispered. The council has forgotten what the moon truly answers to," she said. "Not law, not blood, choice." The lake flared again. Power rushed through me, fierce and cold. My mother's form began to fade, light bleeding into the air. "Remember the breath," she said, "the rhythm. Call the moon not as a servant, but as kin." "Will I see you again?" She smiled, voice already dissolving. "Every time you close your eyes." Then she was gone. The light collapsed back into the ruin. I fell to my knees, gasping, the runes beneath me blazing like fire trapped under ice. When I looked down, my hands were glowing. Silver gold veins traced my skin, forming patterns like constellations. The forest around me responded, branches bending toward me, leaves trembling as if in prayer. For the first time, the power didn't feel wild. It felt awake. By the time dawn touched the peaks, I was no longer lost. The forest had given me direction, the moon its quiet promise. And deep within the bond that stretched across miles, I felt it, faint but real, his heartbeat. Weak, slowing. A whisper cut through the wind, as soft as a memory. "He's dying." I rose, heart hammering, and the forest opened a path before me. If exile was my punishment, then salvation would be my rebellion. I turned south, toward the kingdom I had left behind, toward the man who had risked everything to protect me. The moon followed, lighting every step. Chapter 12. The coup in the capital. The wind carried the scent of war. Smoke, blood, burning prayer candles. The kind of scent that told the earth it was too late to pretend peace ever lived here. I ran. Through forests that bent aside like they remembered me. Through valleys where the air still hummed with the ghosts of old howls. Each breath burned, but the bond inside me burned hotter, pulling, guiding, aching. The closer I came to the capital, the stronger it pulsed. Then it faltered, a single heartbeat. And then nothing. I stopped cold in the rain. "No," I whispered. The word turned to mist. No, not yet. I pressed my hand to my chest, calling him silently the way Sarah had taught me, breathing, reaching through the thread that bound us. It flickered faintly, dim but alive. He was there. Fading but there. The horizon glowed red. Not dawn, fire. I crested the final ridge, and my breath caught. The city was burning. Towers once crowned in silver now speared black smoke into the sky. Bells screamed, desperate, discordant. The palace, his palace, was half lit, half devoured by flame. The coup had come. I reached the gates before the soldiers did. The bodies of the blood guard lay scattered like broken vows. The sigil of Dareth had been carved into the stones beside them, a declaration written in blood. I pulled my hood low, slipping through the chaos. Every corridor I entered reeked of battle. Servants fled. Loyalists fought shadows in their own armor. And above it all, the High Elder's voice boomed from the Grand Hall, amplified by sorcery. "By decree of the Council," he thundered, "the Alpha King is stripped of crown and title. The throne will be cleansed, by blood if necessary." The crowd roared back in response, some fearful, some ecstatic. And through it all, I felt him, his presence flickering like a candle clinging to life. I followed the thread. The doors to the hall were guarded, but fear makes even armor weak. I reached for the moonfire inside me, whispered the rhythm my mother had taught me, and pressed my palms to the stone. Silver veins burst outward. The doors didn't open. They surrendered. I stepped into chaos. The High Elder stood before the throne, staff blazing with false light. The council ringed him chanting, and at the base of the steps, bound in chains etched with runes that burned through skin and bone, was him, the Alpha King. His armor was gone. Blood streaked his chest. His eyes, when they found me through the smoke, softened for the first time in days. "You shouldn't be here," he rasped. I smiled weakly. "You said that the first time I sat beside you." "Look how well that turned out." The High Elder spun, his face twisting in fury. "Abomination. You dare return after exile?" I raised my hand. "Exile ends when truth calls me home." Silver light flared around me, and the runes on his staff dimmed instantly. He stumbled back, disbelief and fear warring on his face. "The moon's power cannot answer you twice. It belongs to the council." "The moon doesn't belong to anyone," I said. "She chooses." He struck his staff down. Lightning shot toward me, but the moonfire met it midair, devouring it whole. The blast shook the hall, knocking soldiers and elders to their knees. The Alpha's chains glowed red, cracking under the force. I ran to him, falling to my knees. The metal seared my palms, but I didn't stop. "Breathe," I whispered. With me, he obeyed. Even near death, he obeyed. The bond sparked. The silver fire answered. The chains shattered in a shower of embers. He fell forward into my arms, weak but alive. "Still think I shouldn't be here?" I whispered. He gave a broken laugh. "Remind me never to argue with you again," the High Elder screamed, rallying what magic he could. The ground cracked. The air thickened. "You defy law!" "You defy the gods!" "No," I said, standing, pulling the Alpha up beside me. "We restore them." The moons above broke through the clouds, flooding the hall with white light. It poured through the shattered windows, touching every wall, every wound, every frightened soul still kneeling. The moonfire rose from my hands, swirling outward like a storm made of memory. It wrapped around the High Elder's staff, split it in two, and silenced the chant forever. The backlash threw him across the hall. When the light cleared, his mask had melted to his face, and his voice was gone. The crowd fell silent. He turned to me, voice raw. "They'll never follow me now." I looked up at him, the silver glow fading from my palms. "Then let them follow us." He blinked once, as if seeing the shape of hope for the first time. Then he nodded. Outside, the fires still burned, but the bells had changed their tone. They rang for survival, for rebellion, for something beginning. He stood on the palace steps, blood still drying against his throat, the moons haloing him in light. His hand found mine, fingers lacing through without hesitation. "To the packs," he called, voice strong again. "Hear me. The council has fallen. The fire has passed its judgment. From this night on, no wolf will bow to bloodlines or fear. The moon herself has spoken. Her will is freedom." The crowd erupted, half in shock, half in faith. I stood beside him, the bond humming so loudly it felt like another heartbeat between us. War hadn't ended. Not yet, but something far older than law had shifted. The moonfire had chosen. And now the world would have to decide what to do with the light. Chapter 13. Blood Oath in the Rain. The moonlight had turned to stormlight. The city still smoldered, and thunder prowled the clouds like a beast scenting blood. The council's banners had been torn down, but their loyalists weren't gone. They were regrouping, gathering in the lower wards beneath the burned towers. The night was far from over. He stood beside me on the battlements, armor repaired in haste, cloak torn and rain-soaked. His knuckles were raw, his eyes rimmed with exhaustion and something deeper, determination sharpened by love. "They're coming through the east gate," he said. "Dareth soldiers. 3 battalions. How many do we have?" "Half that. Maybe less." I watched lightning flash over the hills. "Then we don't fight them like soldiers. We fight them like storms." He turned to me, eyebrow raised despite the chaos. "Storms?" I smiled faintly. "They never ask permission to change the sky." His lips twitched into something that might have been amusement, might have been admiration. "You're starting to sound like a queen." "Don't get used to it," I murmured. The first wave hit just after midnight. Shields clashed, war horns wailed, and the streets filled with steel and mud. The Dareth banners gleamed dark crimson in the rain. I stood at the heart of the courtyard, barehanded, the moonfire crawling beneath my skin like living armor. Every breath matched the thunder. Every heartbeat answered his. When they broke through the outer wall, I moved. Light poured from my palms, sweeping through the narrow corridors like rivers of silver flame. It didn't kill. It disarmed, disoriented, pushed back the tide long enough for his soldiers to regroup. The Alpha King, my king, fought like a myth. He met the enemy head-on, blades gleaming white-blue under the lightning. Every swing was a sentence. Every roar a promise. And yet, even in the chaos, I felt it. Something darker, heavier, moving within the storm. The High Elder's remnants. The ones who had traded their souls for power. The air thickened. The rain turned black, and from the shadows of the far gate stepped a figure draped in corrupted light. Once human, now something else. Its voice hissed through the rain. "You think the moon chose you to rule? Fool, she chose you to burn brighter when you fall." I lifted my hand, the moonfire flaring in response. "Then let's see who burns first." The thing lunged, faster than sight, claws like obsidian, eyes glowing the color of rot. The ground split beneath us as our powers collided, silver against shadow, order against ruin. The world screamed around us. The Alpha's voice cut through the storm. "Era! I've got this!" I shouted back, though my arms shook, my breath faltered. The creature laughed, voice slithering like oil. "He will die for you, as all who love you will." Rage rose, but beneath it, something purer, faith. I remembered my mother's words. Call the moon not as a servant, but as kin. So I did. I breathed. The storm answered. The clouds split open, not with lightning, but with light. Pure, endless silver light. It poured over me, through me, into the world. The black rain turned to mist. The creature screamed, its form unraveling in the brilliance, burned clean from existence. When the light faded, the courtyard was silent but for the rain. The Alpha stood where the last enemy had fallen, blood dripping from his blade, eyes locked on me. He walked toward me slowly, the chaos behind us fading to nothing. When he stopped, He reached out and cupped my face, rain running down his fingers like tears. "You called the moon," he said softly. "She was listening," I whispered. "And what did she say?" I smiled faintly. "That she's tired of watching us suffer." He laughed once, a low, broken sound that turned to something almost human. "Then maybe it's time to stop." He sank to one knee in the mud, took my hand, and pressed it to his heart. "Before the moon and the storm, I swear," he said, voice trembling but unshaken. "No council, no bloodline, no crown will come between us again. I am yours, Aravale, as long as I draw breath." The rain eased. The clouds broke. The twin moons bled through the mist, casting silver halos around us. I sank down beside him, pressing my forehead to his. "Then hear me, Alpha King. I return that vow. Not as your Luna, not as your queen, but as your equal." The bond between us ignited, bright, blinding, absolute. It wasn't just a mating bond now. It was something older, deeper. Two halves of the same storm finding home in each other. The army that had gathered around the walls fell to their knees, watching as the rain turned to light. Somewhere above us, thunder broke one last time, soft, approving. The war was over. The moons had chosen, and for the first time since the world began, the Alpha King smiled like a man who finally understood peace. Chapter 14. The Claim Beneath a Mercy Moon. The war ended not with a roar, but with a silence that felt older than the mountains. Dawn came slow, the sky soft with mist, the scent of wet stone and ash still heavy in the air. For the first time in generations, the capital woke without the sound of bells calling for blood. Only whispers, only breath, and above it all the moons, both full, both watching, hung side by side. Silver and pale gold, balanced. By decree, every pack was summoned to the great courtyard, the place where law had once condemned me, and where it would now be rewritten. They gathered by the thousands. Leaders from the northern tribes, the remnants of Dareth, even rogues who had once hunted under no banner at all. No one dared to speak as he stepped forward, armor still scarred, cloak torn, crown held in his hand instead of upon his head. He looked less like a king and more like the man beneath the legend, the one who had bled for peace, the one who had knelt beside me in rain and ruin, and I stood across from him, wrapped in white trimmed with silver, my bare feet touching the rune-etched stones that had once burned me. Now they hummed softly beneath my soles, warm, accepting. Sarah the witch stood between us, her voice rising clear and low like a hymn carved from wind. "By ancient law," she said, "the mating bond of kings may be claimed by power or by consent. For centuries we have lived by power, but tonight, under the mercy of twin moons, another path returns." The crowd stirred, breath-catching. She turned to me. "You who were once judged, you who carry both the moon and the wolf, speak your truth before the packs." The air trembled. I stepped forward. My heart was loud enough to hear. Every face, every doubt, every scar in the stone, it all disappeared when my eyes found his. "I was born beneath silence," I said, "judged for what I could not choose, feared for what I could not change. But love," I breathed, "love is not a curse, and no bond born from fear deserves to rule us," the crowd murmured. The moons flared brighter. "So I call upon the ancient right," I continued, voice steady now. "Bond by consent, not convenience. By choice, not blood. I claim no crown, no throne, only the man who gave up both to save me." The world seemed to hold its breath. He moved then, slowly, deliberately. The Alpha King, Victor Draven, son of storm and fire, walked across the stones and stopped before me. Then he knelt. Gasps rippled through the courtyard. Even the wind seemed to still. He bowed his head, baring his throat, the most sacred gesture of submission a wolf could make. The crown in his hand tilted, its edge pressing lightly against the earth. When he spoke, his voice was raw with truth. "I was born to command," he said. "But I have learned that power means nothing without mercy. So before the packs, before the moons, before you, Aravale, my equal, my light, I offer not my power, but my peace, I offer my throat, my crown, my bond, and I ask nothing but your choice." His head remained bowed. Every part of me trembled. Sarah's voice carried through the stillness. "The bond cannot be forced. Will you claim him?" I stepped forward until I could feel his breath on my hands. My fingers touched his jaw, guiding him to look up. "I don't need your crown," I whispered. "Only your promise that we never become what they were." His lips curved faintly. "On the moon's blood, I swear it." Then I reached for him. Our palms met, and the mark appeared, silver light blooming where our hands touched, spreading outward like dawn spilling through water. The moons above flared, their light merging until there was no longer two, only one. One silver whole moon. The mark etched itself across both our wrists, an unbroken ring of light. The bond, sealed not by dominance, but by mutual surrender. Sarah raised her arms, her voice echoing through the mountains. "The moons have answered. Let all who live remember, this is the new law. No more chains, no more bargains. Only bonds born of choice." The crowd erupted, cheers, howls, tears. Some fell to their knees, others raised their hands to the sky. He rose and pulled me against him, forehead to forehead, breath trembling. "I am yours," he whispered, "not because the moon commands it, but because my heart does." "And I am yours," I said, "not because fate demanded it, but because I finally chose it." The wind lifted around us, warm now, carrying the scent of rain and silver and renewal. And for the first time since the first howl echoed across the world, the moon looked down not on conquest, but on peace. Chapter 15. A queen who wasn't chosen. Until she chose herself, the world had finally quieted. No council edicts, no swords clashing in the name of pride, just the hum of life rebuilding itself, stone by stone, under a sky that had learned mercy. Weeks passed. The kingdom healed, as all wounds must when hands choose to mend rather than destroy. Children laughed in streets once scarred by fire. Wolves and humans shared the same markets, the same bread. The banners of every pack now bore the same sigil. 2 moons, 1 silver, and 1 gold, entwined like a heartbeat, the symbol of choice. The mark of the loonbound, but peace does not erase memory, it only gives it gentler corners. When spring touched the forest, I returned to the ruins where my mother's voice had last reached me. The air there still shimmered faintly with light, soft, alive, welcoming. I knelt at the altar, laying white flowers in the cracks between stone. "They remember you," I whispered, "even the trees." The wind stirred, carrying her scent, moonlight and rain. "You were right," I said softly. "Power wasn't meant to rule. It was meant to protect. And love," my throat tightened. "Love isn't meant to be earned. It's meant to be seen." A single leaf drifted down, glowing faintly where it landed on the flowers. It was enough. When I returned to the capital, the courtyard was alive with sound. Music, laughter, the smell of roasted bread and pine smoke. The packs had gathered again, not for war this time, but for celebration. He stood at the center, watching me with that look that always felt like a promise kept. His crown rested on the table beside him, forgotten for once. As I stepped into the courtyard, the noise dimmed. People turned, not to bow, but to welcome. No titles, no whispers, only belonging. He crossed the space between us and took my hand, warmth steady and sure. "Where did you go?" he asked. "To say goodbye," I said. "And to remember who I am, and who is that?" I smiled, sunlight catching in the mark on my wrist. "A queen who wasn't chosen, until she chose herself." He breathed out a quiet laugh. "You were never invisible to me, Era." "I know," I whispered, "but I needed to stop being invisible to myself." He brushed his thumb across my cheek, his touch soft against the echo of everything we'd survived. The crowd around us began to chant, not for kings, not for conquest, but for hope. I looked up at the moons rising together, their light wrapping the world in gentle silver. When I spoke, my voice carried across the courtyard, over every scarred wall and reborn street. "This is not an ending," I said. "This is where we begin." He leaned closer, his words meant for me alone. Then let's make a world worth choosing. And when our hands met, 2 marks glowing faintly under the twin moons, the bond sealed. Not with fire this time, but with peace. No chains. No crowns, just home. The moons rose higher, their light falling like a blessing across the new world we had made. A world that had learned love does not ask to be chosen. It simply chooses back. And under that mercy moon, the wolves of the realm howled, not in mourning, but in joy. Home, at last. Thanks for being with us. Like and subscribe for more audios.